Fire hardening. Woo! Different ways to do it. First of all, just how you secure the bow. You could just, use the heat gun on a bow, not in any fixture, not trying to flex it to get reflex or shape it, just, hit it with a heat gun. But I'm not too sure that entirely qualifies as fire hardening because there's no fire in there. Shouldn't we just call that heat hardening? Which is valid. It's very good. I remember I sold a standard American white ash longbow to a fellow, right? Perfectly great bow. And, narrow, deep handle, no slender tips, or not needle tips or anything, just standard longbow. And he takes a picture of it. One limb is perfectly straight, another one has a perfectly bent, damaged looking limb, right? Just straight on one half and then whang, a wang. Obviously, it was because of bad stringing. He was applying pressure in a bad way to one limb. It's always tips, center of handle. Those are your points of contact. And the upper limb, you're kind of creeping up, so it's not perfect. But, fine. I either replaced it with an Osage bow or something, indestructible, or gave him his money back or whatever, because I stand behind my stuff. And I took that ash bow and using a heat gun. I heat hardened it, straightened out the limb, gave it a little bit of reflex, and then shot it hundreds and hundreds of times on my own in that heat hardening. Oh, with white ash, it can be such a good thing. It's a wood that reacts to it. And it's this perfectly good bow. And wound up putting it back on eBay, because back then I had an eBay store. And it definitely said, this is a returned bow. It was damaged because of poor stringing. I fixed it. Full disclosure, boom. I'm going to sell it at a nominable fee just to get it out the door, and person bought it for like half price of what I charged the original guy after I fixed it. Long story short, heat hardening is very valid. Fire hardening brings it to another level because you're dealing with fire. And it can, again, you can debate it if you're using a heat gun with less BTUs going to that bow, but you're doing it for a longer period of time and it's slower, maybe the heat hardening is going in deeper. But, let's just forget all that ancillary minutia, esotericness. Triple threat. Let's go to fire hardening. Now, I personally, do it in two different ways. I use a chimenea, which is a chimney in a bulbous portion with a door that opens. You build a fire and it's chimenea, which really concentrates the heat. I've got more stuff going in at the base, and then it concentrates it up that chimney. And always, whenever you're using a chimenea to fire harden or heat harden, whatever, or a grill, a charcoal grill, wrap the lip with aluminum foil. Or wash it really good, because you don't want to get chicken grease all over your bow. Now the grill, it's a different matter. The bow is much closer to the source of heat, and it's not as turbulent as a big old raging fire in the base of your chimenea. I get quicker results with the chimenea, and it blackens it more than the charcoal grill, although you can blacken the heck out of it with the charcoal grill. The benefit of the chimenea is, and this is my lash up, you don't need to slowly do it because very gentle, it's less than when you're flexing the bow. Put it over to chimenea, and it's a quicker operation, and you always want to move it back and forth so you don't get black spot and then just, less dark and stuff like that. The charcoal grill, it has to sit there for a while. And the danger is sometimes with the charcoal grill, suddenly the flames reach up and hit the bow and you will get a spot, So, in any regard, they both take skill and practice to do properly. But that shouldn't stop us. Next. Hello, Harry. You were asking about, do I have anything to sell? And You know, I'm getting away from commission bows. Just pure and simple. I'm just going to make bows for the enjoyment. I'm going to make decent bows. Unless they're in hickory, they're not going to be excessive weight. There was a question, a friend of ours that watches my channel, hickory blank for a paddle bow. Well, because you have minimum thickness, there's a wall you hit in making the limbs thin before bad things happen. My paddle bow was designed for red oak. It was designed for 45 to 55 pounds at 28 inches of draw. It was I am designing a bow, 45 to 55 pounds. It could be a little less, but again, minimum thickness. If I did a 35-pound red oak paddle bow, it would be an absolute dog because the limbs are too wide. I should make them narrower and make the limbs thicker. But if I was to do it in hickory, you're going to be fighting to get that paddle bow in hickory and have a good bow less than 65 pounds draw weight. That's just it. A hickory paddle bow with these dimensions, the width, 2.5 inches wide, my friends, with the minimum thickness to maintain a good bow, with rounding even. You know, you want a 80-pound paddle bow? Hickory. Hickory. I can't even imagine what it would be in locust, black locust, or Osage. It would be a healthy bow. But yeah, I'm just going to make bows because I want to. But anyway, getting back to selling stuff. Add a comment. I don't have the patience to round using sandpaper. Yes, you do. You absolutely do. Don't stop yourself. It's not a bad thing. Turn on the radio, you know, on a nice day. It's very zen. It's relaxing. On a narrower ball, I said it took about an hour to do this bow. Just sanding it with 60 grit. Just not even knocking off a little time by scraping or what have you. But my paddle bow is 2.5 inches wide in the center of the limbs. And so if you were to do a narrower bow, 1.5 inches, let's say maximum, then tapering to the tips, it would take you a lot less than an hour. It's the width. It's the center section of my pea diddles that take the time. You want a radius sanding block? You know, 8 inches, 10 inches in diameter if you had the complete circle. Let me know. As far as the templates, you know, I've got the range. I've got my molar gay bed. I've got my paddle bow, and I've got a couple other bows here, you know, of my design that I'll sure sell the templates. You know, people have said, aren't you scared? You've developed these designs and you're selling them and people can reproduce them? Hey, I don't care. I've always said if you're better at making a paddle bow or my talisman, more power to you. I'm not going to try to stop people from doing what they do. You could certainly buy one of my paddle bows and, you know, what do you call it, deconstruct it or whatever, copy the lines, copy the profiles, sell them on your own. Okay. Whatever, I didn't invent the bow, you know, and I'm not going to stop anybody from reproducing them and trying to sell them. More power to you. You know, I actually, a long time ago, sold the patterns to it, and a fellow, I wound up selling them on eBay. You know, my style, even advertised them as my style, and it's fine. Somebody said, doesn't that bother you? And it's like, no, not in the least. If he does a better job making them, then he deserves to steal the design, a borrowed design. Not a Freudian slip, I just used the wrong word. Yeah, that's it. Now on to stump grinders. I am going to take this next bit of time on this video and just talk about my stuff. Man, stump grinding would be a good business. You know, I'm too old to climb trees anymore. And, you know, I'll be honest. Now that I am older and not as daring and fearless, you know, I used to didn't mind climbing up a tree and wondering, you know, if I was going to like break out and hit the ground hard. I mean, you have to have that mindset. It's 100% injury rate, that field. of tree care, being a climber. 100% injury rate. You will get injured. You want to be a tree climber? It's the greatest job in the world, but you will get injured. You know, most of the time it's not like a mortal injury or a crippling injury. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. The only injury I had was I hurt my back once. You know, obviously. I mean, stuff happens. And I've got, on one of my knees, and if you were a climber, there's one or two climbers that watch this. You'll understand this, and you have my permission to laugh at me. Absolutely, laugh at me. I had gaffs, climbers. You might call them spurs. We call them climbers. They're those things you put on your shins, you know, and you're standing on them, and they've got sharp, pointy things. Let's just call them climbers. You've just learned a new term here. And so this is technical. I didn't use ascenders to get up the tree on a rope. I either body thrusted, Google that or YouTube it. What is body thrust climbing? Or foot locking. Double rope technique, DRT, where the rope goes over here and that limb, or the cambium saver. Google that too. What is a cambium saver? Acts like a pulley. So you're actually pulling half your body weight plus friction. If you're doing SRT, single rope technique, or it's doubled but you're climbing both as if it's single, I foot locked. That means you take your feet, you step on the rope, and you inchworm up. I was a foot locker. I foot locked whenever I was away from the trunk. I was good at, and I can still climb that way, just a little bit slower. Feet. It's faster than body thrusting. It just takes more energy and there's technique involved. I was wearing my climbers. I had frickin' spurs on. And boom, just out of habit, I might have been tired. It was a takedown. Never climb a tree with spurs on if you're not going to kill it. Don't take a tree that you're just trying to fix and jam holes in it so insects and fungus and stuff. But anyway, so there I was with my climbers on, spurs. And just out of habit, just, you know, practice, I went to foot lock and I got that spur right in my knee. Help! Ripped my pants. I could see a little bit of blood coming out. Finished the climb, came down, went to the doctors, got stitched up. It's okay. That was my only real injury where I punctured my skin. I wasn't hit with a chainsaw or anything. I was a careful climber. But anyway, getting back to stump grinders. I've been pricing them out. The Vermeer, Rayco, Bandit, all these big manufacturers of good quality things. If you buy the lower end, the minimal, 27 to 30 horsepower, you know, they move on their own and the cutting wheel sweeps on its own. The minimum you're going to get into is probably $8,000 at this point. And you're talking about a machine with 2,000 hours on it. And what's the useful lifespan of an engine for one of those? About 2,000 hours. You know, unless hyper careful with maintenance, but these things get abused. I mean, look at what they do. So, $10,000 for a very, very, very used machine, whether it's a 252 or a 292 or the Bandit's version of that or the Rayco or whatever. An old machine for about $8,000 to $10,000. Well, it's like, I want a brand spanking new one so it'll last years, right? What do? The only things in that range are the ones that have two wheels. They look like a DR string trimmer on the wheels. The end sticks out. And the handlebars. And you're wrestling them around. You push them across the grass, up hills, into your pickup truck. Unless you want to buy a trailer and have that extra piece of equipment. I don't have a trailer. But what compact stump grinders are self-propelled? There's a Carlton, which is just an absolute beast. This thing has, can you imagine this? A heavy machine on two wheels that you have to rotate, 27 horsepower. The thing weighs, I don't know what, 700 pounds? That's big, and I'm old. Then the next step down would be the Dosco. 20 horsepower on a thing that you're just swinging. You know, you lock one of the wheels and then you can rotate it around. Self-propelled. Don't need a trailer. You can just ride it right up onto your pickup truck, on a ramps. About $10,000, a lot more for the Carlton. And then there's the DR, which, you know, they build decent stuff, but it's kind of homeowner quality. And I've been reading the reviews, and they say that the self-propelled feature is very weak, and you still have to push it. So that's a no-go. If you still have to push it, plus it's only 11.5 horsepower, not 20 like the Dasco, you still have to push it. The Dasco, their big unit, 20 horsepower, which is good. Self-propelled with big tractor wheels like that, about $10,000. It's like, you can get a new smaller one, the Dasco, or the bigger used and abused and put away wet ones where you just use the joysticks to control it. I'm leaning towards the Dasco. Researching the heck out of it. Research the car you're going to buy. Buyer complaints and everything. Research the stump grinder. I know it's kind of dumb, and not probably any of you have talked about stump grinders, but it's kind of a fascinating thing and a business opportunity, a good one. Because the buy-in is huge. You could be a tree company with your pickup truck and a chainsaw. But to buy in on a real wood chipper or a real stump grinder, it's not cheap. But I've reviewing it, and there are professionals in the tree industry that have gotten the Dasco, and it's a professional level equipment company, that have said, and this is more than one person, they have a small one, like the DR size, 11 horsepower, 10 horsepower, whatever, little push it around. And they would have a bigger one, like the 292 or something like that. Does all the sweeping and moving for you. But the Dasco does everything they need. And two people I've read, they're going to sell their other ones and just use the Dasco. For one thing, you can get in the tight spaces. You can get in the flower beds with ramps and stuff. It's a good unit that actually functions. And it's a horsepower versus time. And if you're going to spend, let's talk new, $30,000 for a stump grinder that can do this stump in 10 minutes, or $10,000 for this Dasco that can do that stump in 15 minutes, and you've got a brand new machine. So that's where I stand on that. And tomorrow it's going to be Social Security time to get on my day off, get that started. I had doubts, because I feel like I'm always hurting and achy and old and stuff. But you know what? Today, I'm going to be greeted with my load, my produce load. I think it's going to be like 200 cases. And a lot of those cases are 40, 50 pounds, and then the bags of potatoes, which are 50 pounds. And if I can wrestle those things around all damn day long, I can certainly wrestle a stump grinder. In fact, I think a lot of the aches and pains, inflammation because of bad diet, And my produce job is actually like going to the gym every day. So in the scheme of 63 and 64-year-olds, I think I'm pretty well off physically, You laugh at me, I laugh at myself. But yeah, that's where that stands. And I got to do it, my friends. You can just sit back and say, I can exist at this point. Or should I take that jump? Should I take that risk? Wouldn't that be wonderful to be able to make a living and start a business? Hire somebody when I don't feel like going out, and grinding away or doing whatever. There was a point in time when I was selling so many bows on eBay that I had to hire somebody to make the bow strings. So everything is possible. Everything is possible. That is all. Yeah. That's it. That's all.